Welcome inside this special edition of the Fast Lane. Trey Lyle here with you. I'm with Mike McAllister from Syracuse on SI, previewing Syracuse versus Virginia Tech. And Mike, before we dive into the game, when was the last time that these Big East rivals met in Lane Stadium? Do you know the date? And I'll give you bonus points if you can name the two starting quarterbacks in that game.
Oh man, it's been a long time. I thought you were going to give me an easy one like the last time they played, which I believe was 2016.
That is correct.
I think that was Dino Baper's first win over a ranked opponent at Syracuse was when Virginia Tech came to the Dome. Last time in Lane Stadium, 2011.
No, it's 2003 when they're in
2000.
yeah, so all the way back to the Big East
Man,
days. Starting quarterbacks was Brian Randall. He was 6 of 14 for 88 yards in a
2003 for Syracuse. Would that be R.J. Anderson?
pick. Correct. He was 8 of 23 for 91 yards, and the final score was 51-7. So, and Marcus Vick played in that game. Right. Marcus Vick played in that game.
Marcus Vick.
Last time they won at Lane Stadium, Syracuse did, was 2001, so not that far ago. But let's jump right into it. These teams are kind of at a similar point in terms of their trajectory or like mood around the program. You know, improving defenses from last season. I mean, leaps and bounds. Really, they're two of the premier defenses you kind of look at in the ACC statistically right now. But they also have somewhat struggling offenses. Syracuse has looked a lot better than Virginia Tech, but I think if I rolled out, I might be able to produce a better offense than what Virginia Tech has looked like lately. But both have coaches with relatively one coach really hot, the other coach warming up a lot, hot seat. So what is your just sense of the mood around this game? As you know, Syracuse is still looking for their first ACC win, despite having, a big win in the season against Liberty.
Yeah, I think Syracuse is in an interesting spot where they still feel pretty confident about the type of team that they are and how they've been playing and the talent that's on the team, even though they have lost 3 in a row and they're sitting at 3-4 and they haven't won a conference game yet. The last 3 losses have all been by 3 points. And then their other loss earlier in the season was a 10-point loss to Rutgers, but that was a 1-score game into the fourth quarter. So, and in 2 of their losses, one of them went into overtime. Another one, they had a kick in the air that could have tied the game. And in the other one against Florida State, they gave up a field goal at the last second to win the game. A missed holding call not included there. But, so I still think they feel pretty confident about how playing on both sides of the ball, how close they are. It's just, kind of finishing the job. They feel like they've been competing with teams that are supposed to be significantly better than they are. Clemson, you expect to be one of the best in the ACC every year. Wake Forest, undefeated, top 20 team. And, they controlled that game for large portions of it. So they feel like they're close to putting it all together. But at the same time, you're kind of in a conundrum where how many times do you have to lose before that starts to weigh on you a little bit? So Syracuse is kind of in an interesting spot from that perspective.
Talking about this offense, I mean, it's made leaps and bounds. Obviously, the quarterback situation has been fluid for Syracuse over the last couple of years after having a lot of stability beforehand. And obviously, Garrett Shrader comes in, the transfer from Mississippi State, after obviously a more mobile quarterback against losing, to an air raid system. He did not fit at Mississippi State once Mike Leach came in. This is a dynamic rushing attack, and it's really been the key for the improvement against for Syracuse against a Virginia Tech defense that has been, its weakness, despite it being a premier defense in the ACC, has been against the run.
Yeah, I think Syracuse has to feel good about that advantage going into this game. Even though they only managed 14 points last week against Clemson, they still ran for over 160 yards, which is the most that Clemson has given up all season. They averaged 6 yards a carry against an elite Clemson defense. Clemson hasn't given up more than 14 points in a game in regulation all season, so Syracuse matched that number. And again, Clemson is one of the best defenses in the country, in the ACC, let alone in the country. So the fact that you only scored 14 points, you kind of set that aside. You start looking at what they've done in the previous 3 games, and they increased week to week their total yards and their points in each game. And it was all led by that rushing attack because of the RPO and zone read action that they can do with Garrett Schrader and Sean Tucker. It puts so much pressure on opposing defenses because Schrader can hurt you with his legs. So if you go after him to try to limit his effectiveness, Sean Tucker can beat you. So they're able to have success there. It's allowed them to move the ball up and down the field. They ran for over 350 yards against Wake Forest, put up over 500 yards of total offense in that game. Their big issue is when they get into second and long and third and long situations. When you start putting them into obvious passing downs because of Garrett Schrader's limitations as a thrower of the football, his inaccuracy and inconsistency, intermediate and deep routes, that puts the offense in a bind. But if they can stay ahead of the chains, get into, 2nd and 6 or better, then it allows them to do so many things. They can run some play actions. They can run some of those quick screen passes. They can run some of those short and slants and quick outs that Schrader's a little bit more comfortable with. And then you can keep opposing defenses off balance.
Now let's just talk about Sean Tucker individually. This guy is a special talent. It appears to be. This is the leading rusher for Syracuse. He's also the leading receiver. And a good comparison would be Levy Brown for West Virginia, who had a lot of success, broke off a big run against Virginia Tech, had a lot of success in the screen game. They did as a whole, it did West Virginia. So looking at that, what is the ceiling kind of for him in this game? And how much can he kind of have, I don't want to say take over the game, but definitely kind of swing it into Syracuse's favor?
I think I'm done trying to put a ceiling on Sean Tucker based on what I've seen from him this season. I mean, if Syracuse could have figured out a way to win a couple of those close losses, of the 4 close losses they had, and they were sitting at 5-2, then I think Sean Tucker is legitimately in the Heisman discussion. That's how special of a season he's having. He's on pace to break Syracuse's single season rushing record. This is a program that's had Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Floyd Little, Joe Morris, Larry Zonka. I mean, a whole bunch of all-time great running backs. And Sean Tucker is going to shatter the record, which currently sits at, combine that with the fact that he's already hit double-digit total touchdowns. So, he's been unbelievable. They're going to do a lot of different things to get the ball in his hands. Don't be surprised if you see him on some screen passes. They like to, look at formations where they've typically run the ball and kind of fake a quick run, roll the quarterback out, and then have Tucker or another or hit him on a short space. They're going to be creative in trying to get him the ball and try to make him a focal point of this offensive attack. There's no question.
Moving to the other side of the ball, like Virginia Tech, after struggling last year, they jumped up and improved a lot defensively, from 32 points per game down to 23, and then 464 yards per game to down 309. This is a really good Syracuse defense that has appeared to be fast and get after the quarterback. And this is coming in with a more than struggling. I don't even know if you can use struggling to describe how bad Virginia Tech's offense has been. How, opportunistic could this Syracuse defense be in a game against an offense that appears, not to be that scary? And maybe he's going to try to establish the run more. It doesn't really have an offensive identity coming into this one.
Yeah, they just kind of played an offense like that last week against Clemson. Clemson came in, had been struggling. They're trying to kind of figure out what their identity is. And Clemson's doing that with, 4- and 5-star caliber skill position players. And Syracuse was able to take advantage of weakness along Clemson's offensive line in terms of pressuring the quarterback. And that certainly helped them out. They limited Clemson to just 17 points and played pretty well in that game. The big issue for Syracuse's defense, they've been pretty good against the run. They've been very good against the pass. I think they're leading the ACC in passing yards allowed per game. They're certainly one of the top few, if they're not leading, is forcing turnovers. They get, and it doesn't seem to make sense because they get after the quarterback. They have tackle for loss. They pressure the quarterback quite a bit. They sack the quarterback quite a bit, and yet they still haven't been able to have a game where they're forcing, 3 turnovers or something like that. When they get a turnover, it's 1 in a game. It's rare that they're getting multiple. So that's really been the biggest issue and really the only issue with this defense. They've been pretty good in the red zone. They've got 2 really good cover corners in Garrett Williams and Deuce Chestnut. Williams got hurt against Clemson last week, so we don't know if he's going to go this week. We haven't heard enough on him, but he's a legitimate first or second round NFL draft pick. Chestnut has been one of the best true freshman defensive backs in the country this season. They've got a lot of depth and a lot of quality at safety. Their linebackers are fast and athletic, really good pass rushers. And then their defensive line is deep, and they rotate those guys in and out, and there doesn't seem to be a drop-off when they do. So I think this is the best defense that they've had since Dino Babers has been there. And they've limited big plays, which has been a big issue for them over the past handful of years. And, I think they're going to come into this game with a lot of confidence and hope that they can get some of those turnovers to give their offense a short field.
Well, Mike, one more question for you before we head in. Thanks for the trivia at the beginning, but this one's a little simpler. So Virginia Tech, 3-point favorite, a measly 45.5 is the over under. That's, pretty low for a college game. What is your expectations for this one as Syracuse rolls into Blacksburg come Saturday at 12:30?
Yeah, it's funny because coming into the season, when I was looking at the schedule and, okay, if Syracuse is going to get to a bowl game, where are the 6 games that it's going to come from? And I immediately chalked this game up to that's going to be a tough environment. Virginia Tech always has good players. I just don't think that's right after Clemson too, because that's always going to be a physical game that you're going to be up for emotionally because of what Clemson's program has been. And so I kind of chalked it up to that's probably going to be a loss. And then I've watched both teams play, and it just feels like even though both teams are coming in on losing streaks, that one feels like it's close and the other is still trying to figure out if it can be competitive. And because of Virginia Tech's struggles on offense, I think for a team to beat Syracuse, they have to have a really good, balanced, dynamic offense. If you have an offense that struggles to score the ball, and then you have an obvious weakness on defense, which is Syracuse's main strength, I think that plays to Syracuse's advantage. So if I'm a Syracuse fan, I'm going into this game feeling like this is a winnable opportunity and that this is an opportunity for Syracuse to get off the schneid of those 3 close losses. And, if you can establish the run early, perhaps get out in front and try to make the Virginia Tech offense play catch up, that gives you a great chance to be successful in this game.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this special edition of the Fast Lane. How can our listeners connect with you online and get some more, just read more about, maybe Tech fans want to read more about the Syracuse Orange heading into this game. And obviously basketball season right around the corner.
Absolutely. So you miss out. We're at allsyracuse.com. Very easy to get to that website. You can find us on Twitter, either my personal account at McAllister Mike 1 or our site's account, which is at Syracuse on SI. You can follow us on any of those spots, read our content, interact with us. If you've got questions about the team, feel free to send them to me. I will gladly answer them. Love to hear from Virginia Tech fans to get the Syracuse side of this matchup.
And as always, you connect with me at TreyLyleVT and at Fastlane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks to Mike, and thanks to everyone listening to this special edition of the Fast Lane.